boys and girls. Today in math, we're going to learn to add and subtract decimal numbers. So let's start. The first thing you have to remember is that when you add or subtract decimal numbers, you need to line up the decimals. So for 3.6 plus 5.1, when they add them up, they put the 3 and then the decimal there and then the 6, 5 decimal 1. Now we're going to add just the way we do any number. Let's start in the tenths column. 6 plus 1 is 7, 3 plus 5 is 8, and we put the decimal in between. So the answer is 8.7 for that question. Now this one, you may or may not be able to see it from this page here, but it's 6.2 and 1.7, but they put the 1.7 on this side. I hope you can all see that is a grand mistake. You cannot do that. It should be, let's cross that out, 1 decimal 7. Now I can add properly. 2 plus 7 is 9, 6 plus 1 is 7, and I place my decimal in the exact same space. So the answer for adding 6.2 plus 1.7 is 7.9. Awesome, boys and girls. We'll move to the next slide. So it says here, add by lining up the decimals on the grid paper. We'll just do 2 together. So I'm going to show you what not to do for A. It says 3.4 plus 1.5. This is what not to do. Do not do this. You're going to end up with the absolute wrong answer if the decimal places do not line up in a column. So instead of it being there, I have to put the 1 in the ones place, a decimal in the middle, and the 5 in the tenths place. Now I can add. 4 plus 5 is 9, 3 plus 1 is 4, and my decimal is in the middle. Let's just do one more. B, I've got my grid paper. It makes it easier to put a number in each box. Decimal 6 plus 2 decimal 1, add. 6 plus 1 is 7, 4 plus 2 is 6, and make sure the decimal goes in that line. Okay, excellent work, boys and girls. Let's move to the next slide. All right, this is the same practice. I'm going to keep going. Here is where it could get tricky. This number says 32, and this number says 4.7. How can we line up the decimal points when 32 has no decimal point? Aha, we talked about this yesterday. This is what we do. 32 is the same as 32 decimal 0. It's the very same. We can add a decimal and a 0 and the number has the same value. Now, underneath of it, I can add 4 decimal 7. Now I can add 0 and 7, put my decimal in between. 2 plus 4 is 6, and 3 is here. So the answer is 36.7. Don't let them trick you by when they give you a number with no decimal. You can add that yourself. All right, let's see if there's any other trick questions. All right, let's just do one of these. B, 16 plus 2.3. So you know 16, where are you going to put the 2.3? I hope you're remembering you can add a decimal 0 to the 16, and underneath you can put your 2 decimal 3. I'll just go over that. Now I can add those two together. 0 plus 3 is 3. The decimal is straight down. 6 plus 2 is 8. And 1 and nothing is 18.3 for an answer. Okay, I don't think you'll get tricked on this. I think you'll remember. All right, subtracting works the same way as the subtraction we've done this year. Again, for decimals, we're just lining up the decimals. So for A, 7.4 minus 2.1, I'm just going to write my number by lining up my decimals, and then I'm going to do the operation of subtraction this time. 4 minus 1 is 3. Put the decimal point in the same column. 7 minus 2 is 5, and my answer is 5.3. Let's do D as well. 6 decimal 5. Should I put the 3 decimal 2 over here? I hope you're all saying absolutely not, Mrs. Acker, not lined up. 3 decimal 2 goes right underneath. Now I can subtract. I always start on the right hand side. This is the tenths. 5 minus 2 is 3. Decimal there, 6 minus 3 is 3, and that is your answer. Awesome. Next slide will do. All right, we can also subtract with decimals and regrouping. Let's look at this one. 53 decimal 2, I'll make sure that decimal is big for you to see, and minus 6 decimal 7. Oh boy, we haven't done this in a while. Subtracting with regrouping, we always start on the right-hand side. This is the tenths. And we're going to do exactly what we did before, even when we were subtracting ones. We're going to start at the top and say to ourselves, what's 2 minus 7? And you should say to yourself, I can't do that. So I'm going to borrow from next door. I'm going to borrow, put that as a 2, and this is a 12. What that is saying is that 10 tenths, or 1 whole is 10 tenths, and I'm borrowing that over to there, just the way you borrowed before. Now I've got 12, take away 7. That is 5. The decimal stays in the same place. 2 minus 6, I have to borrow from the tens. Now I have 12 minus 6 is 6, and 4 minus nothing is 4. So the answer is 46.5. Some of you may feel rusty on subtracting with regrouping, and so that's something we can definitely spend time practicing today if you need that. All right, why don't we do just one more together here, and then we'll do some more practice after this recorded lesson. So 3 decimal 4 minus 2 decimal 9. I know that I can't go 7 minus 9, so I borrow. And this becomes 17. 17 minus 9 equals 8. My decimal goes there. 2 minus 2 is 0, so the answer is 0 decimal 8. Or just decimal 8. Both are the same number and have the same value. So regrouping is something you may not have done in a while. All right. Using a place value chart. In your book today, they try to help you by giving you a chart. If you don't have grid paper, a chart may be useful. So let's look at this one. They may ask you to do 14 decimal 6 minus 8. So I am going to write 14 decimal 6, and I'm subtracting 8. I wonder where I put the 8. I hope you remember that 8 is just 8 ones, and you can add a 0. Now, I can subtract this time. 6 minus 0 is 6. 4 subtract 8, I have to borrow from the tens. That's the same as 14 minus 8 in the ones, which is 6. The answer is 6 decimal 6. All right, one more. 7 minus 2.3. 7 ones, there's a decimal. Remember, you can put a 0 after it. Subtract 2 decimal 3. 0 minus 3. Uh-oh, I'm going to have to borrow from my ones. This becomes 10 tenths. 10 minus 3 is 7. And then 6 minus 2 is 4. The answer is 4 decimal 7. Awesome, boys and girls. Okay, so I think for today, we will leave it at that. I'm going to ask you when you're done watching this video to just come back to the classroom, and we will give you an assignment, and if you need extra practice with subtracting, we'll go in some breakout rooms. Thanks, boys and girls. Have fun.